Hello and welcome to the CoC Admin Advanced Editing and Troubleshooting Tools training video. This video is just designed for CoC admins, and so the menu options and forms we'll be looking at are not available to a standard end user. As a CoC admin, you have access to some advanced data editing forms that standard end users do not have access to. And in this training video, we'll be going over how you can utilize these special forms to help troubleshoot issues in the system. All of the tools we'll be looking at today are available under the Georgia CoC admin menu. You'll just need to make sure you are logged in under the Georgia HMIS Programs with Issues workgroup. So the first one we'll look at is the Client Administration form. If you hover over Client Administration and then click on Clients, it'll bring you to this Client Administration form. And initially looking at this, it looks like just a standard client search form. However, it is a little different. So to show that off, I'm going to just click search here without typing in anything to the fields here. This is just going to pull a list of all the clients in the system. I am doing this in training right now. And this form's main superpower, if you will, is that it will search for clients in the system regardless if you would normally have access to them or not based on their sharing. So for instance, right here we have a client that is marked restrict to organization. We can see the organization that created this client is Agency A, so this would be restricted to Agency A. However, I am not logged in under Agency A right now. But again, I am still able to see this client. So this is a very helpful search form if a end user is having trouble locating client and they're not sure why they can't see them, and maybe it's because the client's restriction has been changed by an end user. So you can always come in here and see this information here. Just something to note here, if I did try to go ahead and pull up this client, I actually would not be able to, because once I switch over to the client's workspace and it tries to pull up this client, that's when the security kicks in and says, hey, you should not have access to this client. In the same way, if I took the client ID number here, for instance, if I typed in 406-764, it's not going to pull any results up. So if I did need to go in and change the security restriction on this client so that other end users would be able to access it, what I would need to do would be to switch over to Agency A. Then I could go ahead and let's pull up this client again. Here's my client. Now I could go in and select them, see them as normal, go click on information release, and of course go in and update that if I needed to. So that's one way that you can utilize this form to help troubleshoot issues in the system. We'll go over some of the different search fields that we have here. So we can of course search by client ID, last name, first name, birth date, social security number, the created date, created by, so what person created this client, and then finally what organization created this client. Over here we have client ID number, some standard demographic columns here, and then here's where we have the created date, created by organization, and of course our client restrictions here. We also have a action button here if we did need to go in and edit a client. We have a shortcut to that right there. Again, we can go in and select that client, which just pulls up the client and jumps us over to the client workspace. And we do have delete. However, you would normally not ever want to delete a client unless this client was just created by accident. You can verify that no other enrollments or services or case notes, anything like that, has been recorded on this client by agencies other than the agency wanting to delete it. And that can be hard to tell sometimes, because if a client was, say, created a week ago accidentally by an end user, but in that week they were shared so that other agencies could see that client, well, they might have recorded information under that client as well. So normally, because of that, you would not want to go in and delete a client. A few other ways you can use this form is looking at when the client was created and who it was created by can be really helpful in situations where someone says, hey, I just created this client, and I need to delete it. Well, you could at least go in and verify that it was created by them and on what date. Another option you have on this form, you can always go in and look at deleted clients. If you click on the recycle bin here, it's now going to allow us to search for any deleted clients. And we know we are looking at deleted clients because we'll see this exit recycle bin button down here. So that means we are in the recycle bin just looking at deleted clients. The reason why we will have a lot of deleted clients in the system is because of duplicate clients that have been merged. So anytime a client is deemed to be a duplicate, so that's going to be a client that is matching Social Security number, they're matching birth date exactly, and they have a similar name, those are merged on an ongoing basis. When that happens, one of those client records, one of the records with the client ID, all of that transactional data is going to be merged over to the duplicate client record, and then that client record is going to be deleted. So because of that, when you go in and look at deleted clients in production in our live database, you're going to see several thousand deleted clients. And again, the majority of all those is due to client deduplication. Why it can be helpful to go in and look at deleted clients is you might have an agency where they had just written down the client ID number, so they've been working with this client and basing it on the client ID number in the system, and they're going to go search for that client ID, and they might not be able to find it, because if that client was merged in with a different record, then that client ID might not be in the system anymore. But what you could do is you can come in as a CoC admin, search for that client ID under deleted clients, and then you can get their information like their Social Security number, their birth date, and then do a search outside of the recycle bin to find the record that they were merged into. So this is going to be a helpful way to go in and help an end user locate what they would call a missing client. Another way you can use this tool is, say you have a new organization that has just started keying in clients, and you just kind of want to check on the quality of the clients they are creating. Well, you could go search by their organization. It's going to list all the clients they've created. You'll see who created them, the created date, and you can quickly look to see, are they including Social Security numbers on all their clients? Are they including birth dates? Do the names look correct, or are they putting test people in like we see here? Are they using proper security restrictions, that kind of thing? So this can give you a quick overview of all the clients created by an organization. And then also you can do a search by username here. Maybe you have a new user in the system and you're just concerned about your clients they're creating and you want to verify they're doing that correctly. You can do the same thing here. So again, those are just a few of the ways you can use this form to help troubleshoot issues that you run into in the system. The next form I want to look at is the Family Administration form. You can find that as well under Client Administration and then click on Families. This is going to list all of the family accounts in the system. So just kind of a general concept around this is every client record that is created in Client Track is automatically assigned a family account. So that is going to include whether it's a client that is actually in a household of multiple members, or if they are just an individual being put in the system, they still have what's called a family account. You can view that family account by clicking on or hovering over household members and clicking on household history on a client record, and it is going to give you that family name. And we can see that listed here. Everyone should have a family name, and they should have also, at least one of those family names should be current. This does allow the system to track multiple family names, so as clients move from different households, there will be a history of families they were in, but again, you only want one to be current. So one issue we run into the system from time to time is because of migrated data, there will be the same client that is in the same family more than one time. So for instance, let's pull up one of those cases right here. So I've got this client pulled up. If I click here, I can see just one listing here. However, if I go to do an intake, when I get to the family member screen, they are listed twice here. I can also see this if I click on household members. They're listed twice as well, because this is going to be the same form that comes in on the workflow. So this, of course, confuses end users because they're not sure exactly what's going on or how to correct it. One way they can correct it is going in and clicking on family members and then putting end dates for date removed on one of these clients. And what's happening here is this same client, it's just one client ID, but they are just in this family twice. So we can see here they have the same family name and they're both set as current. So as an admin, what you could do in this kind of situation is you can take this family name, you can go over to our family administration search form. We can search by family name. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up this family. Here we are. We can see they do have two family members listed. I can say view family members, and this would give me an option to easily delete it. In this case, that would be the correct thing to do because, again, this is just one client, so they should not be listed in the same family twice. And normally this would actually never happen in the system. Again, this is primarily, you're going to see this because of migrated data issues. But we could go ahead and delete this client from the family, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now we can go over here. We can go ahead and refresh this form. Still got the one listing here. Now when I go to household members, it's just going to be one listed as it should be. Now something to note on this, you would not want to use this feature if someone is just in the wrong household. So if I needed to move this client from the household they're in into a different household, I would not want to go in and just delete them. If I did that, they would then have no family account tied to them. And what we said earlier is that all clients need to have a family account that they're associated with. And when you're doing an intake, that automatically happens in the back end. When you go in and create a client, And I'm just going to walk us through this real quick so we're all on the same page. One of the last steps down here, and you'll notice this is blanked out. This is actually where it goes in and it is creating a family account anytime a new client is created, just so you know. But say for instance, we needed to put this client into a different family account, remove them from the one they're in. What you'd want to do there is go to household history, add this client to another family. We'd be able to search for that family name, and then we would say set as current family, so it's going to set this new family as the current one. And we could do remove client from all other families, so it's going to remove them from any families they are pre-existing in. And again, this way no one is getting left without a family account. It's just putting this client into another family. So you only want to use your family administration form as far as deleting people from a family. Normally, if it is the same client that is in at a family multiple times, and so to kind of correct those kind of data quality issues. And that is going to be one of your main reasons why you would use family administration. The next forms I want to look at are the advanced enrollment editing forms you have access to. You can find those also under your client administration menu group here. And the first one we'll look at is open enrollments. Here I can go in and select the project, and this is going to then list all of the clients that are currently enrolled in this project. If I wanted to just search for a certain client, I could do that by name here, and if they have a current enrollment, it will list them here. This will just bring some basic results here. It's going to list the client name, enroll ID. It's going to list the project name again, the entry date into the project, last service they received, how many days they've been enrolled, and days since last service. One of the unique features this form offers is if I click the action button here and click edit, I'm going to have some advanced editing I can do on this enrollment. One of the main ones is here you can see it actually lets us select a different project. So I do have some warnings to go along with this feature here, but kind of the general idea we're going for is, let's say a end user enrolls a client into the wrong project and they reach out to you on how to fix that. Well, one thing they could always do is go in and delete the enrollment and then delete all of the assessments they created with that enrollment and then redo everything from scratch. Or as a CoC admin, you do have access to this form where you can go in and change that project. But some warnings to go along with this: if they enrolled the client into the wrong project type, so for instance, say they should have enrolled them into a RI project, but instead they enrolled them into a CE project, well, we know that based on that project, that's what drives those initial assessment questions when they're doing an intake. And so if they enrolled them into the wrong project, well, then they did not capture all of the required assessment questions needed for that enrollment. So if I just go in here, switch them over to a RI project, for instance, they're still going to have some data quality issues because they're not going to have any of those RI assessment questions already answered. So then they would need to go in and go either through the edit enrollment workflow option or the review entry assessment workflow and make sure that they are adding all of those assessment questions that were not initially answered. And so that's something the end user would need to be aware of, you would need to be aware of, and probably work with them in making sure that information is captured. Because of that, for situations where someone has done enrollment into the wrong project type, it's usually going to be better for them to actually just delete the project enrollment and recreate it from scratch. However, a good use for this tool would be, let's say they enrolled a client into a rapid rehousing project that's just for the wrong CoC. So let's say they have 2 rapid rehousing projects, one's for one CoC, one's for another. They just need those switched. Well, in that case, you could go in and switch those. Something to still note even on that situation, and we'll go ahead and use this client as an example. Let's say we know this client is enrolled in Atlanta CE. Really, it should have been Athens CE. So I'm going to go ahead and select Athens CE, and I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Now we'll note that it's not showing this client under Atlanta CE, and of course that's because they've been switched over to Athens. So if I pull up Athens, now I can see them here. I can also go in and pull up their client record here. We can verify now, yes, they just have an enrollment in Athens. However, if I go in and click on Review Entry Assessments and click Edit Assessment, this is going to show the master assessment. We can see the master assessment also records the project name. So we can see this is still listed as Atlanta CE. This can cause some confusion if they are doing some data cleaning, or some of the standard reports might look at this master assessment and it confuse it. So what they would need to do here is go ahead and switch this over to Athens as well. And while changing the project through this form is going to change that for any household members that are enrolled into this same enrollment with this client. Of course, everyone has an individual master assessment. So what we'd have to do is go to any clients that have an enrollment in here. So let's go look at their case members. We can see they have a child here, so let's pull up that child. We would also need to go into their master assessment and update it as well, because it's still going to show Atlanta CE. So that's just something to note on going in and modifying a project like that. Another option you have down here, you can see the entry assessment that is tied to this enrollment. This would allow us to go in and remove that connection if we needed to. We could also search for the correct one if need be. Also, if there is not a master assessment tied to this, maybe that there is a master assessment system but it's been disconnected somehow through some data quality problems, you can go in, search, and easily connect that master assessment that's in the system to this enrollment. So this is another way you can kind of use this tool to help correct some data quality issues. And then our other advanced editing form we have is enrollment cases. This is a little bit more flexible as far as searching for an enrollment. So on our previous form we were looking at, we could only look for clients that have a current enrollment in the system. So if they are not currently enrolled in a project, we could not go in and pull up that enrollment or make any modifications. This one, on the other hand, will let us search for any enrollment. It's going to do that by what's called case ID or case name. To get that, you would pull up a client, and on their dashboard we have the case ID here. So for instance, if I pulled up this right here, copied that, typed it into case ID, it's going to pull up that case and then give me the option to edit it. Here I would be able to go in and change that project. This form actually gives you a list of all projects in system. However, you would only want to ever change a project to be another project within that same organization. So if there's an end user that has said, hey, I've got access to 2 organizations and I recorded one project under this organization, really I should have recorded it under another one, you would never want to go in and change that project to be a project outside the organization that created this, because anytime transactional data is recorded in the system, whether it's enrollments, services, assessments, there's always the organization that the user is logged in as at the time, that is always saved. That information is always saved under that organization. It's not something you can just go switch over and the system still work correctly. So you never want to go in and modify something like that where you're trying to jump from one organization to another. And these are the main cases, though, the main reasons you would want to use these 2 advanced enrollment editing forms. Again, it's going to be for data quality purposes, primarily if someone's been enrolled into the wrong project and you need to do a simple switchover, or if you need to go in and link a master assessment. Of course, you can do that as well with the open enrollments form. The last tool I want to cover is the paused operations report that you have access to. You can find that under user management and paused operations report. This is going to allow you to first search by date range up here. Then you can select an organization. Here it's going to let you filter by users if you only wanted to look at a certain user's paused operations. But what this is going to do is it's going to give you a list of any paused workflows that a user might have. So here we can see this is broken up by end user, and this is just going to list what workflow they were in, the date they paused it, and what client they had pulled up. Few things to note about paused workflows. Just because a workflow is paused does not mean that the end user has not already gone in and completed that entire workflow and all of the needed assessment questions. So let's jump over to a client record real quick just so we can see kind of how paused workflows function. So if I were doing an intake, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm in training now, I'm just going to go ahead and do an intake on this client. Actually, let's include a program that they are not already selected in. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue to just key in some of the information for this intake. And let's say I get to this form and I don't know this information, so I'm going to need to pause this and come back to it later. Or let's say I'm going to lunch, I need to go ahead and stop where I'm at, or I need to pull up another client in the system. I can always click this pause the workflow option right here, and then it's going to give me a little message, let me know this was paused successfully. This will also happen if I leave this screen up and the system automatically logs me out. It's going to pause as well. And then at any time I can go over to paused workflows, and it's going to allow me to go in and resume that. So if I click resume here, it's going to take me right back to where I was, allowing me to continue on in this workflow. So in that case, I hadn't finished this workflow already, so this would be a case where I would need to go in and complete it. However, maybe I've got an enrollment in here that I have completed previously, but I'm going in and using the edit enrollment workflow option. So let's take one of these other enrollments, for instance. If I were to go in and click edit enrollment workflow, I'm going through it and then I pause it, or I leave the screen open and it automatically logs me out. That's another way this can get on my paused workflow list even though it has been completed already. So if I'm not going in and canceling that workflow, I'm going to run into that issue where I have a lot of paused workflows. And we do get issues from time to time where end users will be concerned about workflows that are showing paused, and they're concerned that they haven't captured all the information they need. But just kind of know the caveats to how workflows can get listed as paused. Also, they can always find their workflows for this particular client by clicking here, and this will allow them to delete workflow. This isn't going to delete any information in the system. It's just going to delete that kind of saved spot they have within that workflow. Another way they can pull up their workflows is if they go over to the My Client track menu group. They have paused operations here, and this is going to show all of their paused workflows that they have in the system for all of their different clients. And then they can easily go in and resume these workflows if they need to, restart the workflow, which just takes them to the beginning of the workflow for that client, or if they no longer need that saved anymore, they can go in and delete the workflow. So again, just something to think about when you are going in and looking at paused operations report, and you pull up a organization that has a ton of paused workflows. Don't just automatically assume that means they're not continuing the workflow, but go in and do a little research, pull up some of those clients, and see if they do in fact have any missing information. And this concludes our advanced editing and troubleshooting tools training video.